Hello, my name is Enzo from Holistic Life Network.
Hi, I'm Isabel.
And today we're here with Allan Shaffer, a very interesting personality. Allan, you're a chef, you're a teacher, and you do energy work. Can you tell us how all this comes together for you?
Well, cooking has always been a passion for me. I started actually when I was 15 years old, and I did a Swiss apprenticeship. I did a very traditional apprenticeship in cooking like you would see in the movies, you know. Yeah. I worked in a hotel and I had chefs and I went through all the different departments. I wasn't kosher at the time, and so I learned, as you would see, you know, all the different departments and here and there, and I became a chef. A chef has always been something that's very dear to me, and I think I enjoy the craziness of the, you know, putting order in the chaos, you know. Like it's this very special kind of a personality, you know, that's cuckoo enough to work in the kitchen, right? Yeah. But I also enjoy the alchemy of it. I enjoy, you know, taking ingredients and putting it together, yes, and you know, working with it and seeing the outcome. Creating the art through it, and I still do it, and I've been doing it all my life, and I've traveled around, learned different cuisine from different people, and it's not only my trade, it's also been my hobby. At the same time, I've always been very interested in the human energy field.
Yes.
And so my hobby, even though I worked full-time in the kitchen, I always took courses and traveled around learning about the human energy field. And it really started for me when I was about 20-something years old. I was in a car accident.
Oh, yeah.
And I lost a vertebrae. I had two vertebrae that were squashed. Mm-hmm. And the doctors were telling me, well, you can't walk, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. There was my cooking career. And just by divine providence, I met a 9th degree black belt in Taekwondo. Speaking with him and telling him my situation, he said, you know, I said, do you think that it could help? He said, well, listen, you go take it slow. And 7 years later, I had the 2nd degree black belt.
Wow. And
through him, I went to the Orient because the school that I went to was Mudakwang, was a type of Taekwondo, and it was very focused on the human energy field and using chi. It was, the whole thing was not so much self-defense, even though of course it's Taekwondo and that's the essence of it. But what we were really learning was the human energy field and how to work with chi. And my master that I had was certainly a master in the use of chi. And so from that, I started to study it even more. I took it into other areas and finding teachers who understood more about chi. And I went to the Orient and I learned. I was in a Zen monastery and I learned much more about the use of chi and the discipline behind the use, like the real, you know. And I was lucky because somehow divine providence put me also in touch with people who accepted me. This, you know, white boy from Canada coming into this Oriental world, right? And so I was lucky because, you know, there was no other people like that there except me.
And just out of curiosity, what about chi and about energy really appealed to you at that time? So,
I think what really appealed to me was this ability that manifested something that was higher than nature. This ability to harness something that was greater than ourselves and focus it to use it and focus it on a mental, emotional, and certainly on a spiritual level. And at the same time, I was reading a lot of esoteric books. So I was reading Madame Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner, and I was reading all about masters. And I started to get very much involved in magic and I mean real magic and understanding alchemy. And started studying it very seriously and putting it, of course it was very much into my cooking too, because cooking is like alchemy, you know, you're playing with things and coming out. And so with my chi and my credit, I was putting it all together and I lived that kind of life. And as the years went by, I just more and more learning about it. And then at a certain point, I became religious. I mean, I've been born Jewish, but I decided to follow the path of Kabbalah. And when I did that, I went into the kosher world, which was different. I started my own company. My own catering company, which is today I'm still involved in that kind of work also. But then I started learning more and more about chi and learning more about developing chi into the healing modalities, and mixing it with Kabbalah and healing and chi is something that and as the saying goes, when the time is right, the teacher appears. Yes. And I've been very blessed, really blessed with some amazing teachers, you know, that really give them over.
And did the chi work that you learned, did it help your injury?
So yeah, absolutely. I got a black belt. I mean, yeah, absolutely. To this day, you know, yeah. I mean, I still have it if I go in an X-ray, but it disappeared.
Okay.
You know, yeah, for sure, yeah. It completely, you know, it was difficult for me. I had to really endure a lot of pain. I mean, Taekwondo is about using your feet, and I had to, you know,
Yes.
but you know, we went through that process, and it was my age at the time. I was young then, and it was also determination. Right? I went 7 days a week, you know, 3-4 hours a day, 7 days a week for 7 years.
Wow.
That's incredible. And do you apply that kind of determination to everything you do?
Not anymore. I'm an old man now. Now I realize the difference between divine will and my own personal will. I'm trying to let go of that personal will now. It's not serving me any longer so much, you know. So I learned, you know, and I learned very specific things, and when I started to focus on it in healing, so I found the teachers, and I did reflexology, and I did you know, just different modalities, and I did naturopathy. So I started taking courses just as a matter of interest. So I have a certificate in naturopathy, I have a certificate in reflexology. I have just things that interested me at the time. It was always a hobby, so to speak, you know.
What's interesting is that you had this you started off in Taekwondo and learning about Qi, and so that kind of wisdom and that kind of philosophy. And then, well, it sounds like you've studied and explored a lot of different disciplines.
Yes,
and
I
then,
did.
And then you said that you kind of went back to your roots and learned about Kabbalah.
Right.
And then what I find interesting is some people might have in your position thought, I'm just dabbling, I'm not focused, but you actually found a way to marry those. And so how did that happen? Did you kind of wake up one morning and think, of course, you know?
I think you know, backtrack a little bit. I think, you know, also I've been blessed and born with you know, abilities and gifts, you know, so I don't think that I've ever been normal, you know. So when I you know, right from the beginning of school, I'm colorblind, and I'm you know, I'm intuitive, I guess, or even psychic. So you know, I never had an easy time. You know, like the teacher would talk to me, and I would hear what the teacher was thinking, not what they were saying, and I would answer what they were thinking, not what they were saying, and they threw me out. You know, so I was blessed the fact that, you know, I mean, even at a very young age, they were saying like, I don't know about this boy. You know, I don't know about this boy. So I was lucky that the '60s came along, and it was a very open time, so I could just, you know, and I left home when I was 17 years old. And traveled on my own, you know, did cooking and learning things, but so, you know, I think that I didn't do anything. It just was divinely ordained that I go down these paths, because that was my soul path. There's no question about it for me. Mm-hmm. It's the only place that made sense and made me comfortable and made me happy and grounded. Right. So I just, you know, the information was coming to me. I really didn't go out and do very much, you know. It just, you know, it was coming to me, and then I just took the opportunities to learn and to be involved. And like I said, I was blessed by having you know, always just such amazing teachers. Just, you know, I met them, and you know, I remember at this time there wasn't that much happening in this world, not like today. Yes. There weren't that many teachers, you know. But I sought them out, I guess. And so
that's what's amazing, is you were curious enough to go there. I mean, you didn't have to. But you did.
But I did have to, because it's the only way that I found sanity. Mm-hmm. You know, going into that world and going into a spiritual world and living in the spiritual world, for me, is the only sane place that there is. You know, so
agreed.
So right, so you know, this development. Every time I would read or be involved in this work, I was home.
Right.
I was home. You know, it's when I had to go out and function in the physical world where I wasn't home, because I didn't understand the rules of the game. Mm-hmm. But in that spiritual level, the rules are very different. They're very much more open and much more individual. And so that's what I do in my healing, is that I can take somebody and bring them into that space, because that's the space I live in and that's the space I know about. Mm-hmm. I can bring them into that, from that physical into the direction of where the soul speaks to them.
So speaking of where you came from and now talking about what you do, Can you maybe walk us through, or, I mean, it sounds like it must be very eclectic and maybe it changes from person to person, as is very common, but what does it look like to work with you and what do you focus on?
So people come to me with many reasons, and everybody's got their own story, you know, and I know that whoever comes to the door, it's probably not the story they're telling me anyways, but I listen because it opens up a door, you know, it opens up a window that I can communicate through. And so I listen, you know, and then while I'm listening, I'm also listening to the soul story, and not only the physical story of where it came from, but I'm listening to the soul story. And I also know that all human vulnerability is the opportunity for us to go into, is that place where change takes place. And so in my space, it's sacred space. There's no good, there's no bad, there's no right, there's no wrong. We don't use that language. Everybody it just is. Yeah. And so I go into that space of is, and listen to the story, and I start to see the opportunity within the story. Why is this happening to me? Whether it's physical, whether it's mental, emotional. Intuitively, right? So I work with my guides, and I'm asking, you know, so I start intuitively figuring out, like, what's this opportunity, as much as this person can handle at the time, right? And so once I get some kind of a feeling of what's really going on, I work with essential oils. I have different oils that are connected to the sphere, to the chakras of the person. I decide which area I want to bring that person in. I get them on a table and I do hypnosis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist.
Wow.
And I do hypnosis. The hypnosis that I do is to bring them into a place of consciousness of where I would like them to be in relaxation. And from the place of relaxation, then I go into the human energy field using my hands and release any kind of blockages. And I specialize a lot in releasing voices, because we all have voices that are attached to us. Voices. You can't do this, you can't do that.
Okay.
You know, negativities that have been through experiences in this life or past life, karmic life, and at the same time through teachings or through experiences in relationships, fathers, mothers, whatever. And once I can start to release that, then the person can start to come to their authentic self, because the authentic self has been lost.
I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but I can say personally that I've come to points in my life where I thought that I resolved something, and maybe for a time I did. Mm-hmm. And when I'm in a vulnerable place, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this issue's coming back up. Yeah. So you talk about releasing voices, and what do you think about that? Do we ever really release those voices, or do they come back and why?
So the opportunity is, it looks like this, that the ceiling of one level is just the floor of the next. Mm-hmm. So because we're talking about, in reality, what we're talking about is a soul having a physical experience. Like, what are we doing here? You know, if we're soul beings, why did a soul have to come from this, you know, elevated space of consciousness and come into a physical body? Because here we have free choice. Yeah. And here this free choice, and not only do we have free choice, but it's only through a physical body that we can have a deeper relationship with the divine that they can't have in the spiritual worlds.
Why is that?
Because in the spiritual world, even angels see the light. Light, the density of the light and the quantity of the light reveals whatever it is that's being revealed in that space. And so seeing is believing. They're in it. Mm-hmm. There's no free choice. They're just in it and they see it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's exterior. It's something that's exterior to the divine. The divine is emanating something, right? You come here to a physical body, right? There's a concealment. We don't see the light. We have to find it. We have to use free choice. But at the same time, what is creating this moment by moment on a vibrational level, right, is divine will. The divine is sending energy and vibration and creating all this moment by moment all the time. So something that comes from your will comes from a deeper space. It's something internal rather than external, which is what exists in the spiritual world. So we have a physical body. The physical body allows us a relationship with the divine in a physical way, something deeper. We can touch, we can smell, we can feel, we can love, we can embrace. So we can in fact have a deeper connection and relationship with the divine in this physical world more than they can in the spiritual world. But at the same time, it's concealed from us. Because if it was revealed, right, we couldn't exist.
Yeah, it's stronger too because of the yin and yang effect. I mean, like you said, it's concealed. We can also choose to go there or not to
Or not
choose.
go there.
And either way, we're going to be propelled towards it one way or another.
Yeah, and yeah, but that's karmic, and it could be in this life or a next life. Of course, everything is individually and collectively heading in that direction. Because eventually, however this manifests itself collectively, that's going to be revealed, that this is a spiritual world. The veil is going to be taken from, from our eyes, and the chain is going to be, cut from our hearts. And we're going to see it.
And then what does that mean for physical existence?
So,
For the evolution of that?
So, great question. So, and that's what we're developing now. We're developing the spacesuits that are going to be capable of containing such a light. And that's why we have this physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual evolution that's taking place. And we keep on going down lower and lower and lower, bringing the light into the darkness and developing these spacesuits even stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, so that when it happens, we're going to be able to contain the light in consciousness.
What does that look like?
Whoa.
Oh, that looks like
Oh,
freedom.
that's a question.
That's love and freedom and peace, and all the negativity will not exist any longer. There'll be no longer any darkness. It'll be in eternal light.
How is there light without darkness?
Because they're both creations. There is no light. There is no dark. When you look at the middle path, right? So sometimes we go into the light, and sometimes we go into the dark. But both of them, in terms of creation, are both created functions. Light and darkness are both the same in terms of their creation. They're both created things. It's just a metaphor. It's a metaphor. It's just a metaphor. It's just a metaphor.
That light and darkness are a metaphor for something.
Yeah, something that
Encompasses it all.
Well, yeah, that would take a whole class to at least one to get into what that looks like or to feel like. And of course, along with that comes the responsibility of knowledge and comes the responsibility of action. Because here what we're talking about is not something that's just so abstract. Once you understand it, then it has an effect on your own personal life, right? You can't live the lie.
So Allan, you also teach as well? Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about what you teach?
So I'm always teaching because in order to do this work, it is teaching,
Yes,
right?
but I mean workshops, classes.
So I do workshops, I do classes, not as much as I would like to. I'd like to do more. And for me, I'm making this transition between always being a chef and doing this as a hobby, as a personal thing, to everybody around me saying, hey, you got to share this with others. You can't just, it's just not your own thing anymore. It's always been my own thing. And I've always been scared, to be honest. It's like I don't want to use a cliche, but it's like being in the closet, Because I always got, when I was a kid, I always got like so, negative things about it. Like,
There's
what do
so
you
many-
do? What do you do? What do
There's
you
so
know?
many more people like you now, so
Yeah.
it's not so much in the
Yeah.
closet anymore.
And also because it's been my experience that I don't function the same way. I rely on the spiritual world and to guide me in what I do, so and how I be. And so I see that all the time, moment by moment, and I'm seeing it all the time, that I get what I need, and things happen, and but I don't function in any other way. So there's always been kind of, for me, a friction of it's just different times now. So
And if people wanted to contact you, how could they contact
well,
you?
I have an office. I have an office. People come to see me.
So do you want us
phone
to
number.
list your office?
Yeah, sure, we
Okay.
can do that. Yeah.
And
phone
do you also
number.
want us to list a phone number or an email or?
And both is
Oh,
fine. That's all
okay.
fine. That's all fine. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, it's interesting work. Again, what I try to understand here is that all vulnerability and those very places that we feel vulnerable, that we're being exposed and that we're hurting, be it on any level, physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, is really just our opportunity to change directions. It's our opportunity to go into that place, and it's karmic, and there's something that's talking to us and saying, now is the time.
Yes.
And we're divinely, and the other thing about that is to understand that we are divinely supported in this work, right? And we're all trying to do this on our own, right? I, me, I, me. We have to learn. Not only so great, I'm such a nice person. I know how to give. Giving and taking are equal, and giving is not because it feels good. you know. You know, a lot of people give because, oh, I did this, you know, I'm so righteous, I feel so good. You know, giving is because it's the right thing to do.
I think once somebody had told me that receiving was harder than giving.
Right.
I agree.
And, But you cannot disallow that person to give you, to not give you something, because that's why I'm saying it's interconnected. When somebody gives, there's a certain energy, and if you don't want to receive, you're not allowing, you know.
It's a connection.
And here we're talking about something even on a deeper spiritual level, because here what we're saying is that the universe is being created to give to you. But like using a Rolling Stone cliche, you know, you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need.
Yes.
Right? So this idea of receiving is not only receiving from, you know, I give and I'm receiving because I'm taking from that person whatever that person's giving me. It's you know, it's DNA, divine nurturing assistance. You know, it's our divine nurturing assistance. In other words, the whole universe is there to assist me so what's consciousness? I'm consciously aware of this esoteric connection to the whole spiritual realm, and I put my needs there, and I ask for what I need, and that's faith. So it has to be faith-based. Without it being faith-based, again, I'm relying on my own what? Whatever we hold on to, be it my faith, be it my religion, be my money, be my, you know, the grass that I eat or smoke or whatever I put onto that, my yoga, you know, you can be guaranteed that whatever you put your faith in, sooner or later it's not going to hold you any longer.
Mm-hmm. You mean physical things?
Physical things, spiritual things. If, you know, there's one connection, and that connection is to this divine source. And once we start to you know, so you know, what we're looking for here is this path that takes us away from our pursuit of happiness. Because happiness is only based on our ego. Why are you happy? Well, it's going my way. Why are you not happy? Well, it's not going my way. Oh, look, I just bought this car, I'm so happy. 10 years later, garbage, need a new one, not happy, right? So there's something in our life that we call joy. And the path of joy is the path of the broken heart. So all the things that we've held on to that start to disappear, our health, or through age, through suffering, through what your relationship, whatever it is, right, that takes us away and destroys that ego of happiness, is a path that leads us to something called joy. And joy is not happy. Joy is not necessarily I'm jumping for joy. Joy is a state of mind. It's a state of consciousness. It's when you realize that all you have in your life, all we have in our lives, is this divine connection, that we are soul beings and that's forever. And nothing, it's forever. Even when your body dies, you go into that space of a soul being. All we have is that soul space, and that's forever, and it's in the moment. And that's what we hold on to, because that's our truth and our reality. When we do that in consciousness, that elicits a response from something that's higher than nature. Something that is not only higher than nature, but has complete, unlimited potential. And you're bringing unlimited potential through you as a vessel into a world that is limited. So how do you have unlimited potential coming into limitation? That's healing.
And the irony is that when we let go of, we receive, or we tap into this potential.
And that's receiving. That's true receiving. And so it's not about the I and the me and the happy and the knowing and you know, it's not about that. Yes, we study. Yes, we learn. Yes, we have teachers to go into these places, to dissolve energy, to go into our blockages, to work on ourselves. What's the purpose of all that? To attain that divine intuition. Einstein said that intuition starts where logic stops. So once we move into that space, of intuitive space of receiving, then our tools and the things that we use are no longer applicable. It's much more of a humbleness The path of the broken heart is when you break something, you get to see what's inside of it. So the path of the broken heart is the path of humbleness.
And on a practical level, especially for people who are not necessarily practicing any kind of religion, and who are kind of, you know, caught between spirituality and religion, or whatever.
Right.
So on a practical level, how do we begin to harness that intuition?
Again, it's letting go of the ego of things, because this is our inheritance. Our authentic self is connected to that. We are soul beings having a physical experience. So what is all this onion skin and this, you know, all this protection, all these things that we've put around it, right? That's slowly dissolving anyways. It's just being vulnerable. It's just going into that space of vulnerability. And having faith that in that space of vulnerability, that spiritual realm is going to see us through it. Because now consciousness, meaning that I'm consciously aware of this, and I'm consciously asking, and therefore I'm, you know, and then I wait and I watch, and I'm available moment by moment, living in the moment. Because on a spiritual level, everything is happening in the moment, right? Past this meeting, you know, what's the future? The future is what you're doing now is going to create your future. And so being moment to moment, living in the moment is where we meet this, and becoming our own vulnerable self. But we have to come, or the universe puts us in that position through suffering on some level.
Is this something that you do workshops about the whole? Because I feel like this is a part 2 vulnerability.
Well, it is. Yeah, that's what. Well, this is what all my workshops are about. Of course, is how to tune in, how to tap in, and how to, you know, how to look at that space, and how does it look like, you know. And once we start to put words and concepts and you know, borders and boundaries around this, then we start to realize, hey, you know, that's how I live. I just haven't seen it. Right? So I call it transformational therapy, because I'm taking a person and I'm transforming them, and all I'm taking them and I'm showing them the door. I can't go through, well, I guess sometimes I can, but I can't, you know, take them through the door, but I'm showing them where the door is.
So Allan, I know we could go on and on and on and on, and maybe we will at a later date.
Yes.
To be continued.
Or maybe some people can come to some of your workshops.
I think you know, anybody that wants to contact me individually or collectively, or wants to make a workshop or put things together, I'm definitely available and open. I have no agenda, and I guess I would leave it at just to say that that even sometimes, you know, what looks, you know, the dark times really is, you know, there's a lot of light, you know, in that darkness.
You have to take the opportunity.
And you have to take that out. You have to see it as the opportunity, and be open and vulnerable to work through it. And yeah, there's going to be changes that are going to be made for sure.
Well, Allan,
thank
you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
My pleasure.
And like I said, hopefully we can
My
continue
pleasure.
this.
Anytime.
Take care.
Thank you.